so before we get into the educational piece of this video, I need you to watch this property tour for just a second, because this house is the reason that we're having this conversation today. It was move-in ready, updated throughout, priced to sell. My buyer was pre-approved, motivated, and ready to make this his new home. We toured it, he loved it, we wrote the offer, and then a few days later, my phone rang and everything changed. The listing agent called me and said, "Your buyer cannot purchase this property." It was a mess. My buyer was so frustrated, and honestly, so was I, because there was nothing wrong with the house. There was nothing wrong with my buyer. He was very well qualified, and he was a VA buyer, fully approved, ready to go. So what happened? Friends, he could not buy this home because of a rule that most first-time buyers have never heard of. And honestly, a rule I didn't even know applied to this specific property until it was too late. But here's the thing, that's not where this story ends, because by the time we got to closing day, I had negotiated a foreclosure mid-contract, kept every single original term of the deal intact, handled both sides of the paperwork with no other agent involvement, and my buyer got his house. So stay with me, friends, because it is story time, but this video is also going to teach you something important about FHA loans. And it's also going to show you exactly why having the right agent in your corner is going to change everything for you when you're buying or selling in Virginia. Hey friends, I'm Sonali Hutson with Hutson Realty Group, and I've helped hundreds of families relocate to Hampton Roads and Virginia over the last 10 years. I specialize in helping people move with clarity, protect their finances, and choose a home that actually fits their life and their values. And this situation right here, y'all, is one of the most real, most unscripted things that's ever happened to one of my deals. So let's go ahead and get into it, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what the FHA 90-day seasoning rule is, why it exists, who it affects, and what questions to ask before you ever step foot into a house that could have this issue. And then I'm gonna tell you the rest of the story, because trust me, it got pretty wild before it got good, okay? So let's start with the rule itself, because you need to understand this before you start touring homes with an FHA loan, okay? So all of my FHA buyers, listen up. See, my buyer fell in love with this property. He was using an FHA loan originally, which is incredibly common, especially for first-time home buyers and military families. FHA loans have lower down payment requirements, more flexible credit guidelines, and they are one of the best tools available for buyers who are just getting started. But here's the thing, FHA has a rule, and it's called the 90-day anti-flipping rule, also known as a seasoning requirement. Here's what this means in real terms. The seller must have owned the property for at least 90 days before an FHA buyer can close on it. That's it, 90 days. If the seller has not hit that mark yet, FHA says no, regardless of how qualified the buyer is, regardless of how beautiful the house is, regardless of how legitimate the rehab was. In our case, the investor who rehabbed this property had only owned it for a little while. So my buyer had to wait, or possibly was going to have to wait, for 91 days to be even eligible to close with an FHA loan. That meant sitting on a property he already had his heart set on for 6 weeks or more with no guarantee that it was still going to be available. Now, why does this rule even exist? Because it was put in place to protect buyers just like him. See, back in the early 2000s, shady investors were running a real scam. They would buy a distressed property for $100,000, do little to nothing to fix it up, and immediately flip it for $200,000 using a fake appraisal. Now, I don't know how that happened, y'all, but FHA buyers would close on overpriced houses that were falling apart, and they would end up losing everything. So thank God FHA stepped in and said the property has to season in the seller's name for 90 days so the market has time to verify its actual value. That's a good rule when it's stopping fraud. But here's the frustrating part. It applies even when the rehab is completely legitimate. See, the house that I showed you earlier in this tour was not a scam flip. The investor put real money into it. A new roof, a new HVAC, updated the electrical, refinished the floors. This was a quality renovation. But FHA does not care about the quality of the work. The timeline is the timeline, period. So who can buy a house like this before day 90? Well, a cash buyer can close tomorrow. Conventional buyers can purchase it as long as their lender approves. VA buyers can purchase it also, but it depends on the lenders, because some VA lenders actually follow the FHA seasoning rules and some do not. FHA buyers are waiting. There is no exception, no waiver, no way around it. And if you're relocating on a tight timeline, maybe your lease is ending, maybe you have a report date, maybe you just need to be settled by a certain point. Well, that waiting period can completely derail your plans. Now, here's what should have happened on the front end. end. The listing agent should have disclosed the acquisition date up front, either in the MLS notes or when we called to schedule the showing. They should have simply said, hey, we purchased this with an FHA, we can't use an FHA buyer, okay? That's it. That one sentence would have saved everybody involved so much time and heartache, but it didn't happen. Now listen, y'all, I'm not throwing the listing agent under the bus, okay? Maybe they were not aware of the rule. Maybe the investor didn't tell them. But what I will tell you is this: I will never let this happen to one of my clients again, because it was so frustrating. Because now I know exactly what to look for, and I know exactly what questions I need to ask. Before I show any FHA buyer a foreclosure rehab or a recent flip, I'm gonna check the property history to see when the current owner purchased it. I'm gonna pull the county records to confirm whether it was a distressed property or a foreclosure sale. And I'm gonna verify that we're past that 90-day seasoning window before we ever schedule a showing. That's just the standard for me now. So if you're an FHA buyer, here are 3 questions you need to ask your agent before you tour any flip or rehab property. First, is this a foreclosure rehab or a recent flip? Second, when did the current owner acquire the property with an FHA loan? And third, is this home FHA eligible right now, or are we still in a seasoning period? Those 3 questions will save you so much time. And if your agent cannot answer them, that is information too. Now, let me tell you what happened next, because this is where it gets real. My buyer loved the house, so we were going to go ahead and move forward with the contract. We were just going to switch the loan type. We stayed under contract and we were ready to move forward. And then, y'all, the property went into foreclosure, okay? The original seller lost the property mid-contract while my buyer was already under agreement, already emotionally attached, already planning his life in the new house. Now, most agents would have called their buyer and said, look, I'm sorry, we got to start this process over. But y'all, your girl, I'm not most agents, okay? I got on the phone, I tracked down the new owner, the entity that had taken over the property through the foreclosure process. Basically, she bought the property at auction. They were not represented by a real estate agent. There was no agent on their side. So I had to sit down and have a conversation with them about honoring our existing contract because my buyer had so much to lose. But here's what I want you to understand about that moment. That's not a normal ask, because when a property goes into foreclosure mid-contract, the new owner has every right to start fresh. They do not have to honor anything from the previous deal. They could have listed it at a higher price. They could have found a cash buyer and moved on quickly, and I would not have been able to stop them because the seller we were under contract with got foreclosed on. They no longer own the property. But y'all, I made the case. I handled all the paperwork, both sides. No other agent was involved. I was the only real estate professional in that transaction at that point. I negotiated directly with this new seller. I kept every single original term of my buyer's contract intact, and I got them to agree to honor the repairs that had been promised by the original owner. And guess what, y'all? My buyer closed on that house. Same price, same terms, same repairs. Everything that he was promised from day one. We had a little bit of a delay, probably about 7 to 10 days, but that's what it means to have an agent who's not gonna give up when things get complicated. Because in real estate, guys, things are going to get complicated. Deals are gonna fall apart, surprises are gonna happen, but what separates a good agent from a great one is what they do when everything goes sideways. I tell my clients this all the time. My job is not just to open doors and write offers. My job is to protect you, to fight for you, to find a path forward when the path disappears. And in this case, the path disappeared, okay? And that's exactly what I did for him. So let's bring this back to you, because if you are an FHA buyer shopping in Hampton Roads or in Richmond right now, here's what I want you to take away from this video. The FHA seasoning rule is real, and it's not going anywhere. Flips and foreclosure rehabs are everywhere in this market right now because investors have been very active. And if you're not asking the right questions up front, you can waste weeks falling in love with a house that you can't even buy. So make sure you ask your agent those 3 questions before every showing of a flip or a rehab property. Check the acquisition date, know your eligibility window before you get emotionally attached, and make sure you have someone in your corner who knows how to navigate the unexpected, because in this market, the unexpected happens more than you think. If you're relocating to the Virginia area with an FHA loan and you want someone who's going to protect you from situations like this and fight for you when things happen anyway, all you have to do is get in touch. You can text me at 757-837-0096. Friends, I'm not here just to sell you a house. I'm here to make sure you don't buy the wrong house. And I'm here to make sure that when things get hard, you still get to the closing table. Guys, thank you so much for watching my channel. Your support absolutely means the world to me. I appreciate you more than you know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Check the comments below. Get in touch at any time. I'm here to help. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.